it's the key. It's the key for a business that succeed. It's a key for, it's like, value people before you are looking for money. Like, don't do this for money, but value the person you're speaking with.
When you really get in tuned to people's needs and you have that real relationship and you can open up to them, you'll hear the truth. You're going to find out if your product's good or your service is good. You're going to find out if it's bad. You're going to find out what other people are thinking about, like why they may leave. A lot of business owners, new and experienced, still fail to realize if you focus on only your products and making them good and then target it, people just go somewhere else, right? You always need to take a very customer-centric, people-centric approach to business, because the owner is not the most important person in a company. It's the customer.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Unlike Marketing. Today I'm with a great guest, Joe Crist. I met him actually on LinkedIn, and I was already part of his podcast. You can find, if you go through his channel that I put in the description, you can find that. But I want to introduce him. Joe Crist is a top digital transformation expert. He specializes in innovative initiatives and specifically on the defense. I want to give him the voice because, I know he has so much to share. He's a great person. And yes, please, Chris, Joe, can you share about yourself? Can you share how did you start it? I'm sure people there are ready to hear from you.
Yeah, hey, GQ, man, thank you so much for having me, first of all. I really appreciate coming on the show. So hey everybody, I'm Joe Crist. So I am the CEO and the founder of a company called Transform 42. So we are a consulting firm that focuses on helping businesses in the defense sector. So your Lockheed Martins, your Raytheons, and a lot of the most smaller companies that are trying to grow right now. We help them scale more effectively with a lot less risk through what's called digital transformation. So digital transformation is a pretty big term, right? A lot of people use it. Most people don't understand it. A lot of people think digital transformation, they think, oh, hey, we do AI, or this is digital marketing, or it's blockchain or something, right? And everyone thinks, okay, it's predominantly tool-based. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting about digital transformation? So digital transformation optimistically has a 70% failure rate, right? So to give you an idea of the scope of the size of this, right, the scale, it's this year alone, it's estimated that the entire U.S. economy, so every business in the U.S. and the government included that has tried to digitally transform themselves, has invested $4 trillion with a T, dollars into these activities. Now, when you have a 70% failure rate, and as I said before, that's very optimistic. Some experts believe it's actually up to 85. That's $3 trillion of money. That's challenges companies are facing because they're doing it incorrectly, right? It's because they focus on that technology. The true way to do it is through first changing culture and helping your people, creating digital literacy, understanding metrics, and empowering a more decentralized way of leadership for those who are closest to the customer to actually start making more strategic choices. And obviously having the process to really fit those value streams to not only help your company grow, but to help your customer, be happier, be more fulfilled, enjoy your product, get greater value out of it. And then technology is the last step to really create speed, right? A big challenge I've seen in a lot of companies is they buy a piece of technology, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, and plenty of other entrepreneurs out there, where you buy a piece of tech thinking it will solve a lot of problems, and you really only use 20% of it, and you're paying quite a bit of money for it, right?
Yeah.
And it's a pretty common thing across the board. Every company deals with this, no matter how long they've been around. They get sold on the dream, and as a result, because they don't really understand their process as well as they think, it's really hard for them to really define the requirements. And also because the people don't have digital literacy, they don't really understand the tool, and they don't really understand their process. They understand their segment that they handle, but they don't understand beyond that where they can really help and assist when it comes to building these, high performance systems out there through digital transformation.
Yeah, that's so true. I totally agree with you regarding tech and everything is something that, and it's gonna be worse and worse like as we go, because obviously technology is evolving, but because it's evolving, it's also getting more complex. And people, everyone's jumping on coding. Like I have so many friends that they are like jumping on creating softwares, coding, because like it's, for a long time was one of the best way to make money, but now the competition is raising so high that it's, for who is making code, it's gonna be hard to sell. But also many company that they need software now, they have to choose between like hundreds of options, and they get overwhelmed to understand which one is the right one, which one is the best solution for myself, and which one I'm gonna really use. So sometimes they buy this software because they get sold by the fact it's the cheapest one or is the easiest one to use, and then they ended up don't know how to use or don't know how to even leverage inside their business, and they keep it there paying month after month and actually don't do anything with that. And
Yep.
this is just like the surface part of it. And then, as you were saying, there is all the problem of data privacy, data that goes with this software. Like you need to know, when I buy this software, how much my data that it's being compromised by using this software, like how they're using my data. Like if I'm closing deals or I'm putting like private information from my clients in that software, is it being protected or has been sold to everyone in the world?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big challenge too when it comes to data privacy. So actually, you asked another question too that I think it's actually a fairly interesting story of, how I got here. Right.
Yeah, that's actually like the real question is like, how did you went so niche too? It's like how you got there, and then how do you decide to go in a specific niche?
It's a little bit of passion and a little bit of trial and error, right? So, let's rewind in my life a lot. So I'm 37 now. When I was 18 years old, I actually enlisted in the military. Doing a lot in life, I figured like, hey, this is a good way to really like make a change and improve who I am, because my options back then weren't really that great. So I enlisted in the military. I was actually in the Navy. I was a Navy corpsman with Marine Infantry and anti-terrorism unit for about 6 years. I did that, deployed a couple times, did a lot of cool training, met a lot of really amazing people, and also saw the first, I really got to experience what war was like. Right. And not just the technology side, what I focus on now, but the human cost. Right. And like how all this comes together. So I was really the end user for my customers. Right.
Yeah.
Even for my customers, right. I was the guy on the ground that had to worry about things. I was the guy on the ground that had to make sure radio worked. I was the guy on the ground that had to make sure I had to make sure our vehicles worked. Right. Even though I was, focused on the medical side, like I still had to take part in all the team activities because I was still part of the team. Right. I just had the extra duty of medical, and I've always had a passion for that afterwards. Right. Like it was a big part of who I am. I think it really did shape a lot of my view of the world, and also like really what's needed out there. So I do understand like what the daily life is like for those in the front line. So I did the Navy for a while. I did National Guard. I was a reconnaissance guy. So basically sneaking around, taking pictures, setting up radios, shooting communications, pretty far, where we could send pictures and data and even voice to, to tell battle space commanders, hey, here's what's up. Let me move it forward a little bit, right? I found my way into the consulting world. And that was purely by accident. I happen to have this really like hard to come by, desirable skill in SAP for financial accounting, and I actually got picked up by Deloitte. And a lot happened there that really changed me, right? And Deloitte's an amazing firm. Like you're going to work where you're there. They hire the best for a reason. Like they need people who can really perform. But there was a moment that I had of my first client. It was a Department of Defense client, where we were trying to fix something a previous firm did, and this is the first time I ever heard a client say this, but it was never the last, right? It's when I said, well, what happened here? Who did this? And their only response was, well, it's just another consulting firm, right? And I've seen a lot of consulting firms fail their clients, right? I'm sure a lot of consultants out there have seen the same thing. You have firms that come in and they don't listen. They don't try to understand. They just say, here's our solution. If you don't take it, then you're dumb. Right. And they come with that mentality of this like superiority because yes, they are there to fix a problem. And yes, they do have expertise. But I see more often than not, a lot of firms just not really trying to connect with their client, understand them. Right. I mean, and I can't really talk about my clients now, but it's the same thing there. Like I'll come in and work with them and I'll look at their setups or their systems they have in place, whether they're dealing with people, process, or technology, and it's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing they always tell me is, well, they never really learned about what we did.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like, it's such a, it's such like a problem now where it's like, hey, just get money, that they only think like, you need to build this client. If you're really building this client up, it's going to help them grow and it's going to bring in more business for you. Like you need to really nurture this relationship and understand their needs at not just a business level, but a personal level too, because these are people at the end of the day.
Yep.
And that's what really like ignited this fire in me while I was at Deloitte. Like I really love this work. I love making, people's lives better. Right. And I can't tell you the amount of times that I've worked with clients where, they're in panic mode and they're survival mode the entire time they're working, wherever they're working. And we actually start fixing things and taking a lot of strain and stress and creating an organization within, that company or that client. Whether sometimes it's government as well, where people are less afraid to go out. People are less afraid to go to meetings.
Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful thing when you really see like you're not just making a company better, you're making someone's life better. You're giving someone more time to go see their family. You're giving someone more time to go, on vacations and hang out with their friends. And you're also giving people, better peace of mind and even better health. Like, there's an individual that, fortunately he survived, but he like when we first showed up, he was basically doing the job of 5 people. He ended up, having an enlarged heart, and he had to take a couple of weeks off. But like when he came back, we were working and things were so much smoother. And he said, like, I wish you guys came 20 years ago. And yeah, it's like such an amazing thing to really see that. And like, that's like why I love what I do. It's why I feel so passionate, because there is a need for this. I can't tell you the amount of companies I've seen, organizations in general that I've seen, where they just need a little bit of help to just close the gaps, right? Whether it's a skill gap or a process gap or a technology gap, they don't know what they don't know.
Yep. And I think I would just say, like, I think one thing that I was listening to you and was, I think it's a big point that I would like to stop is like the fact that you value people before you are looking for money. I mean, obviously we need to be paid, we need to get paid, but the fact that, and I want the people to understand this and to hear this part, because it's the key. It's the key for a business that succeed. It's like value people before you are looking for money. Like, don't do this for money, but value the person you're speaking with. And I think that's what you have learned, and that's probably what fire you, like what push you every day. It's like you are valuing this client. You're not looking at their wallet. You're not looking how much money they have in the pocket, but you actually value this relation. You're creating relationship with them. Am I right? Or like,
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it's not just about like consultants valuing their clients. It's about my customers and my clients valuing their customers. The thing is too, like, so we say digital transformation is people, process, technology. It's not just the employees, it's the customer too. You need to understand the needs of both sides, right? You need to understand, how to really engage your employees and get the most out of them. You need to understand, hey, if they're overwhelmed, it's your job as an owner, it's your job as a leader to help them, right? You need to because if they're not productive, not only does it hurt the company, it hurts you as a leader, right?
Yep.
And then it hurts the rest of the team. So you need to be really proactive and understand, hey, these people need to listen and understand and have those like really casual conversations that there's no pressure, there's no like risk of them being punished for speaking their minds. And the same with the customer, right? You need to be able to communicate them. A lot of companies like that are, as they get larger, a lot of their leadership becomes very disengaged with their customer. Right? I mean, there's a couple definitely like amazing examples of you see like the CEO going to like call centers and taking calls just to listen, and actually going out and talking to people, even on smaller contracts. Like when you really get in tuned to people's needs, and you have that real relationship, and you can open up to them, you'll hear the truth. You're going to find out if your product's good or your service is good. You're going to find out if it's bad. You're going to find out what other people are thinking about, like why they may leave. Because a lot of business owners, new and experienced, still fail to realize it's the challenge. If you focus on only your products and making them good and then target it, people just go somewhere else, right? You always need to take a very customer-centric, people-centric approach to business, because the owner is not the most important person in a company. It's the customer. And your customer can be a lot of people. Your customer is also your employee. Everything I do for my team, I treat my team as customers. I ask them what their needs are. I ask them, hey, what could make this better? Or if I say, hey, if we had $1 million, what will we fix today? Right. And by finding that out, and we're able to actually prioritize things like, hey, this is really important. This will free us up. I'm making them more productive. I'm making them happier. I'm going to make them stay longer. I'm doing all these things to really improve the culture of my company, which then reflects to my customer. Because if I have happy people working for me, if I have fulfilled people working for me that are really engaged and love what they do, they're going to always bring their best effort in. Right. And they're going to also work with the customers to make sure that they're happy, right? And they're engaging.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of culture, right? When it comes to the digital age, really technology is 20% of the equation. The 30% process and then 50% people. You need to focus so heavily on people at this point and yourself as well as a leader, right? You can't burn out doing this. And you need to be able to ask people for help as well, because it also shows your employees, hey, if the boss can ask me for help, I want to make sure I can ask the boss for help, right? You need to create that level of trust all around.
Yeah, that's a big thing. And I think Joe Marx would say that leadership build culture. Like a good leader is the one that like shaped the culture of the company. And as you were saying, like it goes down to leadership. It's like leadership is also the main thing on everything. There's leadership in the business with your team, but then like also with customers, is also part of that, because the way you treat your team, probably your team is gonna treat your customers through. Like if you're harsh to your team, if you're too boss and everything, your team is not gonna take care of your customers. It's not gonna do a great job, because like they don't feel valued. Then why they need to value someone else?
Exactly. Right. And yeah, you get the bare minimum out of them. And that's the thing. And I learned this from the military as well, where, I've had leaders in the military who they're very much just yell and scream and do what I say. And all you watch is, the guys do the bare minimum just so they don't get, screamed at. But I've also worked with leaders who would inspire and teach and train and, allow people at lower ranks to, hey, here's my opinion. You may get made, every now and then you may get made fun of if it's a really crazy idea, but it's one of those places where if you had a leader like that, you would see a noticeable change in performance of the entire team. The team could not only move faster, but they could trust each other, right? Everybody knew where everybody stood on things, right? And because you had that transparency and you have that alignment, people are really able to commit to the larger mission.
Yep, I agree. And then like, since we are on the mission values because that's are the one that shape the business, like what do you think if someone come to you and say like, hey, I would like to build my values, I would like to build the mission of the company, like something that I can give to my team, like I'm thinking about hiring some people and everything, what are the things I need to give, like how I create them, like what would you say, like how do you? Yeah,
that's a good question. So it's a fairly complex one, right? But I'll try to simplify as much as I can. So if somebody wants to, so I have an entrepreneur in my company that wants to really build a new capability or a process, and they're like, hey, I have this great idea. what do you need from me? Well, first, I am a servant leader. So in my mind, I need to always find ways to help my employees, but I need to also make sure it makes sense to the overall mission. Yeah. Right. So if someone's going to say, I want to do all these things, I say, okay, I need to understand why. Why does this not only matter to you, but why does this matter to our customers, right? And then obviously I love having metrics where I can say like, okay, hey, this is actually true, right? It's one thing to make assumptions, but the other thing you actually have like evidence that a need actually exists, and here's where it is, right? So then obviously like a big fan of Substack, but also the what and how. So what are you going to do, and how's it going to work? So we actually going to understand. And typically, as we're investing in a new process, right? And I always love ideas. It's try to figure out what the MVP looks like, the minimum viable product. So what do we at a basic level? What do we actually need to create to start delivering value to these customers? Because that will actually tell us does the proof of concept work. I love ideas, but also we don't want to be irrational and just dump millions of dollars into something that doesn't actually work, right? That's a pretty dangerous maneuver to make, and it's not really great for the company, But if we can say, hey, build a prototype, or the first phase of whatever this product may be, which will be our MVP, once we start seeing, hey, we're getting traction, then we start investing more capital into it, and then it's like it starts to grow. But then does that person really come with the idea, like give them a lot of authority over it, but also provide leadership support, and not just from me, but from other leaders, and also say if there's another department in the company that they need help from, make sure they have like a regular cadence of like, hey, here's what's going on, here's where I'm at, this is what I need. That way, there's no confusion about what's going on and what's coming, because everybody is affected. But but mentoring them too, right? Leaders aren't born; they're made, and providing that mentorship to these people who want to be leaders and want to innovate, and actually were brave enough to raise your hand and say, hey, I have an amazing idea. Would you support it? And if we really can, let's support it. But I want to give you as much help as possible so you succeed. But also to steer you in the right direction so you don't make any fatal mistakes, right? Because I'm sure every business owner out there, both new and experienced, has made a lot of mistakes and has learned like, hey, here's things that actually work, here's things that don't work, and here's a better strategy, right? And we really do need to lean on each other as a team and a community to really understand like, hey, here's how we can improve. So once they actually have that we're making money or we're generating revenue from that and actual real profit, then obviously keep investing and keep scaling it up and finding ways to improve upon it. But as long as it comes down to why, how, and what. So it's like when it comes to really executing this, so we understand the high level of like what needs to happen, so we can actually put the right people in place.
Okay, I like what you said before. In one point, you said like leaders are not born but are made. Yeah. And I think in that point, like everyone thinks like, there are people born leaders. Like they always say, like if you go around, they say like, oh, that person is a born leader. And I think they miss the conception of leader is because they have a wrong conception of leader. They use charisma. They see that the person has charisma and that people are attracted to him and they follow him, and they think that means that he's a born leader. Yeah. But in reality, like, yes, it's like leadership is like talent. There are some people that they have some type of skill, natural skill, that they are perfect, they are really good for leadership, but doesn't mean that they are perfect leaders. Yeah. And at the same time, there are people that they might not have the best skill for leadership. They were not born with the charisma. They were not born like to be extrovert. For example, a lot of people think the extrovert person can be a better leader. But at the same time, these people, if they study, if they train, if they learn, they can become some of the best leaders in the world. And there are some leaders that I met that they were not born leaders. They were introvert. They didn't want to have no one around them. They would prefer do everything by themselves and not asking help for no one, never delegate. But then like they start to learn, and they became some of the best leaders I know in my life through because they just put themselves and they made themselves a leader. But that's, I think, like, was a great point you made there. It's like, and it's like, don't be afraid. If you want to be a leader, you can become a leader. It's just a process. It's like trying to understand. It's working, looking around you. And I think, like, what would you actually, I ask you, what would you say are some of the main characteristic of a leader, and what are the one that sell most? Also, I mean, like, since we're speaking about marketing, there are some characteristic of a leader that they are like they are really good also to, as a salesperson or marketing person, it's like helps you to sell your vision, to sell your mission. Which
Okay.
one would you say are that them?
So I guess there's an important distinction that should be made first, right, about leaders. A common point of confusion for people, and I realized this when I was working on my MBA forever ago. A lot of people think management is leadership, and that's further from the truth, right? Leaders work with people, managers work with processes. Can you do both? Absolutely. And I do find that a lot, that those obviously have to go together, right? But not just because you understand the process doesn't mean you understand people, though. And just because you understand people doesn't mean you understand the process.
Yep.
So from that perspective, right, you're focused really on people. So what makes a leader great? Well, one of the things I've learned through a lot of trial and error, and also I've experienced a lot of bad leaders, and I've experienced a lot of amazing leaders in my life. Not just in professional setting, not just in consulting, not just with clients, not just with the military, but even as a kid when I was way back when I was a Boy Scout, was leaders need to be honest with people, right? They need to be honest with not just their followers, not just their teams, but also those who are leaders of them, right? You need to actually have that courage to be honest. You need to have that vulnerability to show people, here, here's who you really are. Because people can tell. People can always tell when you're fake. I know a lot of people get very, like, their ego gets in the way, and they're like, oh, I'm the greatest guy ever, and I do this and this and this. And eventually people see through that. But when you're honest and you tell people, like, hey, I've been through a lot. Here's where we're at today. Based on what I've seen and all the people I've helped, like, you actually have a lot of these characteristics, or whatever. But telling them the real truth, and you say, like, hey, it's not a perfect system, but it will help, and it will get you to the next step. When you sell those real things to them, right? And that's like having that that honesty and that vulnerability with somebody, like, really does make a difference. That's what really builds relationships. Relationships need to be built on trust. And if you don't actually have that vulnerability, like, there will never be trust. Especially if you're dealing with like bigger clients, right? They need to know where you're at on things, and you need to know where you're at on things. And it's not just about being honest with your team; it's about being honest with yourself. This is who I am today, and maybe tomorrow will be different, but today I'm not going to be my strongest. I got a lot going on. I'm going to try my best, but I'm having trouble. Or the other side where it's just like, hey, I'm locked in. I'm ready to go, right? And that's both fine. Just you need to have that level of honesty with you and everyone around you. I think another trick too, it's being able to delegate, right? I see a lot of leaders who want to be popular. It's not necessarily the case for delegation, but I do see it a lot where a lot of leaders want to be popular, so they try to do all the work. So I'm trying to help everybody out, and I get that. I've been the same way, where it's like, okay, whatever it takes is I'm so passionate about like the mission and what we're trying to do that I want to like get involved. Really, that's terrible for your team. You need to like delegate and trust them to actually do these things. Like, okay, I need you to handle this, but also listen to them. So learn how to delegate and actually give clear communication on what your needs are. I can't tell you the amount of times I've worked with vendors, whether it be marketing or software companies, or really anyone, where I never really clearly communicated my needs to them, and they never really communicated their needs to me. And as a result, we ended up just burning a lot of money to essentially get nowhere, right? Because we never really had like that plan figured out, because it was just like, well, I don't know where you start and I end, and I don't know where I end and you start. If we just really communicate with each other and like we're like truly honest, like, hey, here's my concerns, here's what I have going on, and like I feel like so much would have been different, right?
Yep.
So yeah, the ability to be vulnerable, the ability to trust, the ability to have communication, but also create that alignment and commitment, where it's just like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. I need to know what the entire team is thinking, right? There's I believe it's a framework, but I'm not entirely sure. But it's vision, alignment, execution. So like, what is your vision? Getting the team aligned on it and then executing. I've realized with that, if you're doing any like sort of like strategy work or anything like that's very high level, if you don't share those things with your team as a leader, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a total disaster. Because if like you can't see the vision, if they can't see your vision,
yep,
then you're already going to start going in different directions. When you don't get that alignment, you'll fall apart. So when it comes to execution, you're both going to you're going different directions, and then you're going to come back like, what happened?
Yep.
Right? And then, which really comes back on you as a leader, because you never took care of that. But you have to really be able to create those things and get people to commit, because once people actually understand the plan and everyone's on board, executing is actually not that bad, and you're more likely to be successful. And the thing is too, it doesn't actually matter like what a lot of like the other stuff is. Like there's a saying, it's a culture eats strategy for breakfast. What I found, if like with good leaders, is if they actually like follow these principles and instill these values into people and instill this way of thinking, when things go wrong, and things always go wrong in business, it's just the way of the world. They know what they need to do, right? It's in the absence of direction, that culture you create will take control and carry you forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good. And I think on that, be vulnerable and everything, what reminds me is also that we need to be okay to fail. And we need to be open about that. I mean, like if a leader doesn't make it, or like even if it's one of your team that fails, you as a leader, you have the responsibility. You have to take it, and you have to be open and say like, hey, to your client, to be honest and be like, hey, I failed there. I failed you there. Like I made a mistakes, and it's okay. I mean, the right client, the person that they understand what business is, they know that failure is part of business. It's part of be a business owner. It's part to be an entrepreneur. Like you will never get nowhere if you're not okay with failing. Like if you think about that today, you're starting a business and you're not making any mistakes, and you're gonna be always okay, then mean you're not. You're gonna stop. You're gonna see the reality really fast. It's gonna it's gonna come like a car running 100 miles per hour in your face. Pretty much.
Right.
That's how it feels the first time you fail, and it's fine. It's like you're not gonna die. It's like it feels not good. Sometimes it feels worse than other, but again, you were saying before, communication is a key. If you are open and communicative, and you are and with your clients, with your team, it's hard. People, they will understand. They will see your point, and they know that also you are doing something to fight against that problem. Like you're not gonna just like stand there, look at the failure, and be okay. But you're gonna learn something and taking like some type of measures to fight against it.
Absolutely. That brings up a good point about failure. I found one of the biggest indicators of success is someone's ability to handle failure, right? And be okay with it. You have to be uncomfortable with the fact that you may fail and the fact that you will fail as not just a leader, but an entrepreneur, right? Your job is to take risk.
Yeah.
And risk always has a component of failure that's there. It may happen, it may not, but when it does, you need to plan for it. But the thing is, too, when you own failure, right, when you really embody it, and I always tell my people, it's okay to fail. If it's not perfect, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
when you own your own failures as a leader and you really embody them and try to find ways to improve, you create that you show the courage that it's okay to fail, and it also can give the courage to your team, your employees, and even like if you're working with other like contractors or vendors, it gives them the courage to say, "Hey, we messed up," right? Because they saw how you handle it, and if they handle it and bring it up to you, it's okay, right? We are human beings. We're not perfect. No one's perfect, and if anyone ever says they're perfect, run. Don't trust them. That person has more problems than you can imagine.
Right.
Right? But yeah, really understanding that and giving yourself permission. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times I've screwed up. I can't tell you, and I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs too. It's always the same. We always have these stories, and it's unfortunate in like society. A lot of our successes are glamorized, but people really don't realize how many failures it took to get there. Right? Entrepreneurs are the biggest failures in the world. We fail at everything. Right, we keep trying, right, and we own our failures and we learn from it, right? Whether it's, I've, put a couple $100,000 into like marketing efforts that didn't work out. I learned from it. I learned a lot from it. I probably learned enough that get a marketing degree out of it, of like how to market, right? It's like, what does SEO look like? What are backlinks? What is brand building? I didn't know any of that. I'm a systems guy. Like, I think in terms of systems, and that works for me, and that's where I'm strong at. And as a result, I was like, well, I never learned marketing, and I'll just find somebody to do it. But I never could define what was good, and that was a failure on my part, right? And also understanding the thing about failure as well. And failure is an interesting topic, man. When looking at failure, you can't look at it as fault. Oh, this is their fault. This is that person's fault. No, this is my fault. Because it doesn't matter. What matters is responsibility. As a leader, it is your job to take responsibility. It does not matter whose fault it was. Because if you're tied up on like who caused this to happen, then you're never going to move forward. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times I've ran into people who will blame all their problems on somebody else. And I'm sure people out there have seen it, where people get stuck on that. They can't move forward because that one person in their mind is blocking them from moving forward. Yeah. People don't actually have that much power in your life. If something goes wrong, just own it, right? Even if it's not your fault, still own it. Because once you do, in your mind, you process it. You know what to do, to how to move forward, and you move forward, and you grow as not just a leader but a person. Yeah, like fail early, fail often, learn from it, because failure will become your best friend. If you get comfortable with failure, you're unstoppable. That is the biggest fear I found when it comes to entrepreneurs. They are so scared of taking chances because they are scared because when they fail, and they will plenty of times, especially early on, they're scared of how they'll look. Own it. Because the reality, people aren't, like, as I said before, people really glamorize success. People don't remember your failures. Unless you hurt that person in one way or another, people will forget and move on, and they will cheer you on.
Yep.
Right? People love it because it shows you're also a human being.
Yep. And I think like lately has been something that people has shared more. Like in the past, there was not much about sharing your failures. Like now we have so many entrepreneur, business owner that they are millionaires and they speak about the failure, or they speak where they start, how many times they made millions and then they broke again, and then millions and broke again before to get to where they are now. And yeah, before it was a taboo topic, I would say. Not everyone wanted to share that part, and we were always looking only at oh, look at that, he has a brand, he has $100 million, so he's a billionaire. Like, it might be nice that he's a lucky person. and that now is nice, because now you see these people saying like, hey, first of all, I didn't make my first million in 1 year. It took me like 5 years. Second of all, like during that time, I got closer to a million many times, and then I went back broke again, and then a million again and broke again, and then now finally I passed it. Then it's like there's all this story now that we hear that it's actually comfort. It's it's nice because it helps other people to run and to understand like, hey, everyone goes through that. But in the same time, I feel also helps creating some type of like training and understanding, because whenever, at least for we are both in the similar place, like coaching other people, consulting other people, is like now the the best things I teach my clients is not things that I read on the book, but it's things that happen to me. And as a marketing company, and that's where I started pretty much. Like my first consulting and coaching was on marketing. I had to put myself on failing to be able to give the best consulting to other people. Like I had to force myself to fail. Kind of like I had to do things on marketing, trying system, trying ads, trying different marketing approach that I was not sure would work, and push it and spending a ton of money, and see in many of these cases I had my money fly away, or never had any return on it. But because I did that, now I can help other company, and I can do consulting and coaching to other company, because the difference between me and them is like I was ready to burn my money through different like strategy approach and everything on their behalf, and then now I can teach them, where I can help them at least reduce the risk. Obviously there is no such a thing like zero risk.
Yeah.
And you never know how the market doing. Like everyone has a different niche, the product is different, the people are different, even like the person you consult. I always say, they ask, and probably you get the same question, like, oh, what is the ROI on your consulting? And I always tell them, it's actually, the ROI depends a lot on you. If you are capable to take like high risk and to do everything I say like really fast and really specific, I've seen 10x return. But I also have seen 20% return. I've seen 30% return. I also have seen 0% return. People that in 6 months, then they did nothing of what I asked, because they had to think about it or had to take their time. And I was like, and 6 months they didn't do one of the steps that I asked, and then they feel like, oh, you didn't give me anything. But I was like, well, I have a list of homework I gave, and none of them you have done it because you were scared. I'm like, I cannot help. Like if you don't do it, I have a limited. I can help you strategize. I can help you planning. I can give you feedback, but the execution is in your hand. Like it's in our hand at the end of the day. Like we can learn, we can read as many books we want. We can have a mind full of books, but like if we don't execute, all remains is knowledge, and knowledge doesn't make money by himself.
No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, 1,000,000% agree with that. And I've seen a lot of people who they talk, right? They'll be like, oh, here's a great strategy. We can do this. And here's all these good ideas. And then I always ask them, okay, what can you execute on today?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. Okay, well, that's a problem then. Like we need to figure out like, if we have no money right now, if we have no money, we don't have a lot of people, right? Or if it's just, you doing it, what can we do today that will lead to the next step, right? And you have to really break it down in a way where it's, this is palatable, right? I can actually do this work. And what I see a lot of people do, it's I feel like it's as frustrating for me as it is for them, where they have this grand idea and they look at it as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you really want to execute on things, it's not this giant strategy, and it's like if you're going to be looking for results, right? The goal is to break it down into something manageable, like things you can do incrementally. So it's like, okay, today we need to write out a plan for this, or this week, and you really need to do it. And it's not one of those things like I'll get to it when I have time. It's allocate time. This is like whether it's 20 hours, 10 hours, however many hours a week that you're going to put towards this work, you have to hold yourself accountable to the work itself and get it done. But when you start doing these things in increments, you're going to start noticing you're getting closer and closer to the goal, and you're building this infrastructure out to actually make this thing happen. But when you see it's like, oh, I need to improve my SEO, right? Okay, cool. What's that look like? Well, I don't know. Well, okay, that's a problem. Why don't you know? Well, I just don't know. Well, you need to find out. How do I do that? Google, look it up. Like, start working on these small things, because a lot of people, like, they get stuck on the big details, and the big details doesn't matter nearly as much as the small stuff. The small stuff you can do. The big things come together, and I'm sure there's a lot of leaders out there, or a lot of business owners will find, leaders as well, will find is as they start doing this work, they're going to realize their vision is going to change too, because they're going to start to see what's possible. And once you do that, you're like, okay, hey, this makes more sense. And like, I've been on that journey myself where, I think, okay, here's how I want to do this. And I realized, like, I can't. It's either too expensive, it's not technically possible. Like, the skill gap I have is too wide for me to even get there. But I do know this, and I can start with this today. And even like a little bit, going forward a little bit is a lot better than not going forward at all.
Yep. That's big words. And I think in the market they use the word SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound, to create like that type of goals. Like and I think you can find online. There is so many articles written about that, but that's what we use to create these small goals. Like, you take this framework, and I think that's the best way to do. I agree with you. It's one of the main things that I even introduce in the companies whenever I do. We meet the first times, because it's like, as we meet the first time, I'm saying, okay, you were saying before, in the next 6 months or 12 months, let's create some measurable, some specific type of goal. I understand you are maybe stuck now at $500,000, you want to get to $1 million. Good. It's a great goal, but let's simplify it. Let's make it measurable. How we can do that. What is your product? What is your service? How much you make right now? How do you sell it? And then let's see where we can create small increments, and we can work on a specific area, because just saying I want to go from $500,000 to $1 million is too generic. You can do in so many ways. What does it mean? Do we need to do more sales? Or maybe we need to increment your profit margin. Maybe it's your profit margin that's wrong. Like, you're not making enough from the product service you sell. Or maybe your marketing, like, you're not visible. Like, if I search, that's one thing I often say to my clients and to other people whenever I speak with them. It's like, hey, if you put your name on internet, let's search your name on Google. How many pages of Google do you take?
Yeah.
If you're not there and all you can find is just your website and that's it, then you're not visible. Like, it's nothing. It's too small. Like, it's just your website, and then you have, like, right after, you have like other 50 websites competing against you. You are not taking visibility. You're not taking internet. Then you have to be louder on Google. You have to make sure that your name is above any other there. Then, like, work on that. Work on your presses, and like, make sure that and that can be one way. Like, I'm not saying everyone need to do that, but I agree with what you were saying. Like, make this goal specific. Don't stay on the generic, and it's fine. Like, it's fine to have the big goal, but obviously we want to divide them on
Absolutely.
something that we can measure. And and actually, like, that's something happen. I don't know about you, but a lot of the time it's like, do you even have a way to measure what you do right now? Or all you measure you have, it's just the sales. Like, oh, I'm making 500,000, but then, like, you go more in depth, and it's like, okay, what is your cost per acquisition? What is your lifetime value? How long in average you customers stays? Like, what is the average purchase? All these numbers, they're like empty. It's like, oh, I don't know. What is your profit margin? Gone. Like, I don't know. Or, for example, like, I work with products and everything. I ask them the price to manufacture the product, what percentage should take on the main price, like, how much should cover. And people, they're lost. They're like, what do you mean? Like, oh, I don't know, maybe it's like 50% of the price I sell. And I'm like, yeah, that's too high.
Yeah.
should be around 30%. Like if the cost to make the product past the 30% and you're making only like less than 70% as a profit margin, there's a problem there.
Yeah.
Like you need to optimize. There's already something there.
Yeah. You brought up something interesting about measuring, right?
Yeah.
A challenge I deal with a lot of clients, right? It's just a lot of people I mentor as well. It's when they are expecting results, they're expecting immediate results, and that is a really big challenge in the community, right? Where it's like, if we do this, this will happen. I'm like, not exactly. When you do this, it may take a couple of weeks or even a couple of months for you to really see the results. And why would we do that? Well, because you're still going to see the results. When it comes to success, right, of whatever of your work, you have to understand there is a delay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay, right? You're not like, there's a lot of stories out there, and these are really just like, these are anomalies when you hear this stuff. It's like, oh, this guy did this and he made $100,000 in one day. Or this guy did this and he made, $1 million. And that's great. But that is not the majority. The majority is, hey, it has to take a little time, right? Because the person doesn't have enough experience, or just the company's not established enough, or whatever reason, or even $1 million for some companies is like a drop in the bucket. And you really have to like understand that thing from the perspective that is being said, right? From that context. You have to, and you have to be like okay with that, right? Mm-hmm. That you're doing the right thing. You are. It's going to take time, and sometimes more time than you're comfortable with. Yep. But it's going to change, right? If you're going to build a product, if you're going to, especially marketing, like SEO is a great example, right? SEO, it isn't like an overnight thing.
Mm-hmm.
SEO takes like at least 6 months.
Yep.
You really see something, right? Because you got to understand too, it's everybody's doing it. It is a standard now. Like you have to do it, but you're also competing against everybody else who's like working the system. So just because you have a really cool website and you're doing like using like AI to write all these articles and using like keyword optimization and things like that, it's not going to like just like overnight boost you and you're like now on the front page. Like no, it's going to take time. You need to build, because these systems also have rules they play by. And once you understand that, like what you do today impacts what you do tomorrow, and what you do tomorrow impacts what you do the next day. Once you realize that, like, and you give yourself permission to take it easy, focus on the goal, right? Because all those little tasks we were talking before, they go to the big task. That will increase your SEO. That will increase your revenue. That will lower your your COGS, right? That will lower your cost of acquisition costs. All these little things, they add up, right? And that's such a big challenge I see for a lot of people, because like I spent all this money and nothing happened and blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah. It takes time sometimes. If it's really bad and it wasn't your vision, yes, that makes sense to change it. But if it was what you wanted, keep rolling with it. It's not there's no one-step solution in this game anymore. The world is too complex for that.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, like, I want to be honest with everyone. It's not that, at least me, it's not that I don't hope that one day I can make one change and have like a big result like in one day. Like that's a hope that we have, at least I have anyway, even if I'm an entrepreneur. But I also know that it can happen, but it's like jackpot. It's like it's really low the chance that it can happen. That's like, I make one move, or like I go to one networking, or I run one ad, and I'm gonna make like $1 million like from that. The majority they need to build there. I mean, the people that they tell you can see these things, stats like, oh, for example, Walmart make $1 million every minute. Okay, but Walmart didn't start like with that. Like when they started, they weren't making $1 million every minute. They were losing $1 million probably like every month. I know, I don't know much of Walmart, but from Starbucks, they were not making more. They were not profitable for the first 3 or 5 years.
Yeah, same with Facebook.
Do you read? Did people read that part of them? No, like they see now and they're like, oh, look at Starbucks making some $1 million, like lucky them. I'm like, no, that guy was not lucky. That guy was not paying himself. like never went to vacation with his family for 3 straight years. Like if you read his book and biography and what was about, yeah, he had to, for many years he was not living the dream life that everyone wants right now, and he had to just like all the money he was get like the only way to keep moving forward. He was always finding investors and keep taking money from investors, investing in and building up. In fact, same things I heard from Amazon was the same things. Like it was not overnight success.
Oh no, not
Is
even
that
close.
then I'm like, and again, it's fine. It's good to have hope. It's good to have like this fire inside you where like you hope that you're gonna make one change today and tomorrow you're gonna explode.
Yeah.
Because actually sometimes happen with that. Like
Yeah.
it's like this. We are always one step away from our explosion. We are one step away from making it. But like that mentality is fine, but also we need to understand that means that we need to make one more step each day. If we get depressed and we get inside and we're like, okay, today I'm done, I stop, I don't do anything, and then we're like, well, because nothing worked. It was like, yeah, because like you have to keep making steps. You're one step away, but you don't know which step it is. Like you don't know. There is not written nowhere saying like, even with SEO, you were saying doing SEO. My agency does SEO for different company and everything. Everyone respond different. It's like I cannot. I do exactly the same things, the same research, the same goals, and pretty much. And then we look and it's like, wait, what? This one took 3 months and went from like 1,000 impression to like 5,000 impression, over 300 clicks, and then like next business is like same 3 months, and they only went from 1,000 to 3,000 and only 100 clicks, and you're like, what? Why? What? It's hard to understand, but then like, and then like you have to wait 1 month more, and they get there anyway. But it's hard. You don't know when is the right time. Like you don't know when is the moment where you're gonna make it. We are gonna explode it. All you can do is like keep believing, keep step forward, keep investing in yourself, investing in the people around you, and yeah, and that's the things that I hope people actually they get from this today. And one thing before we actually close, I would like you to give like few points, like from all we spoke today. What would be 3 things that are the most important one that they, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, they need to have?
Ooh, that's a good question. So the first one, I think one of the most important things to do as a leader is you always have to upskill. So what I mean by that is you always have to learn. You don't have to learn everybody's job. I don't mean it like that, but I mean ways to learn how to be a better person, right? How to be a better leader. Learn new leadership styles, right? Everything you learn will give you better tools to lead. So upskill. That's definitely one of the first ones. Giving yourself permission to fail. As an entrepreneur or a leader, it's going to happen, and you have to be okay with it. When you give yourself permission to fail, you're giving yourself the ability to grow, right? And when you grow as a leader, as an entrepreneur, everyone grows with you. And I think the last one, and I've actually seen, this is a big challenge I've seen for a lot of leaders out there, even established ones. Create a way to get feedback, not just from the leaders around you, but the people who you lead. Because you cannot improve yourself as a leader if you do not know how you're leading. You have to be open to feedback. You have to be open to criticism. And you can't punish people for it. When people start telling you what they like, what they don't like, what they're really telling you is that you're getting in your own way, or things that you're doing are really beneficial. I've had that conversation plenty of times with your CEOs and COOs where they want to own the system that they built 5-10 years ago, and they don't want anybody to change it. But in reality, they're getting in the way of everyone, right? And they know that, and they know this too. But it's a very difficult thing. You have to really allow yourself to be vulnerable and take that feedback in, because without it, like, you're not going to grow as a leader, and your business won't grow. If you truly want to see growth, if you truly want to see results, you need those three things, right? You need to learn more as a leader. You need to accept failure and understand it and be humble with it. And you need to take feedback from those that are around you, whether you're leading them or they're leading you in one way or another, right? When you do that, you grow as a human being. You grow as a leader, you grow as an entrepreneur, and you're going to see the world around you scale with you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Joe, for being part of this podcast. And I want to congratulate. Actually, it's a congratulation to everyone that has listened to all these podcasts, because like right now they're one step forward. They made one step forward towards success, because honestly, one part of success is learning from other people, from people that have done it, from people that have seen it, and that's why I congratulate everyone. And I also ask everyone to subscribe to this channel, and also to check out your podcast. It will be in the description. So,
Yes.
please, what is the name of your podcast? Like
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, I never actually mentioned that. So yeah, my podcast is called Thriving in the Digital Age. We interview leaders in business, innovation, technology to really understand the secrets to really thrive in the digital age. We talk everything from the challenges out there to solutions to what even the future looks like. Definitely worth taking a listen. I'm sure people will love it.
Awesome. Yeah, all the information will be anyway there. Like also we will put your information on LinkedIn, like these people, they can contact you directly. And again, I want to also thank you everyone that watched this video to the end, and subscribe, notification, and see you the next time.
All right. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.